In this video, we will be sharing 10 pool startup tips that no one talks about. Watch till the end and enjoy the video.
How to do it. Let me show you how to do it.
Okay, tip number one, that you have to brush a lot. Now, I think I talked about in my previous video that there is a reagent that I use which helps you with less brushing, and that really helps. So definitely use that, but that does not mean that you're not going to brush your pool. You have to brush it because there is still a lot of sediments, a lot of sand particles that eventually filters out. And brush it. Now, I wasn't going crazy, but I brushed twice a week. There's a lot of people say, oh, you have to do it twice a day. That's nonsense. You don't need to, especially if you use that product. Now, if you don't use that product, then you may have to. I have not tried it that way, but I think it's like a $40 product, or even cheaper if you're if you can get it for a wholesale price. But definitely recommend you use that and do a lot of brushing. Now, with the brushing, that's one thing. So now let's get to our second tip that I'm going to give you. The second tip is you have to clean your filters. If you don't clean your filters, guys, you're defeating the purpose of brushing, because whatever you're brushing is eventually getting sucked up in your filter and getting stuck in your filter. And if you have a waterfall, you'll see the waterfall kind of slows down, and that's an indication of your pressure building up. Or we can go back there and let me show you what exactly it looks like. Now here you can see a lot of sand that came out, and trust me, this is nothing. I mean, this place was filled with white sand, and I kind of washed it off a little bit on that side. But all the sand that you see came out of the pool, and believe it or not, every day I'm washing my filters, and it's coming out. So talking about filters, but keep an eye on this thing. So whenever you wash it, you set it up, and then whenever it reaches, somewhere in the middle, this is when I clean my filters. But I also look at the water pressure and this pressure, but I also look at the waterfall and see if it's kind of slowing down and things like that. And that really want to make sure you clean the filter if you see that. Okay, tip number 3, you also make sure you are vacuuming your spa if you have a spa. See, I have some debris at the corner, and believe it or not, I have already vacuumed this place a few times, but I still see some debris left. So make sure you're also brushing and also vacuuming the spa. Tip number 4, you definitely don't want to be using the pool for at least a month. Do not get into the pool. A lot of folks, they just jump in, they're excited. I would not recommend that, especially if you're doing a plaster pool. Needs time to cure, guys, and it might have some soft spots that you may mistakenly step on and then find out you leave an imprint. And believe it or not, it has happened to a lot of folks. Their dogs didn't go into the pool and just creates a mess, and then that's something irreversible. So please be patient. I have not used my pool for a month now, and I think it's ready for us now. So highly recommend, for a good finish, and an even finish, you want to wait for at least a month. Okay, tip number 5, make sure your chemical balance in the water stays good, throughout. So that's very important, guys. The plaster is curing, and it requires, a good balanced water for it to stay good. So throughout the life of the plaster, you want to make sure your balance never goes out of, chemistry, because if it does, then you're going to start seeing stains, you're going to start having a lot of problems, and you're going to reduce the life of your plaster. That's a big investment you have done towards your pool. So please don't let it go to waste by not taking care of your water properly. Tip number 6, once everything is settled down, especially with the brushing, and it has been a month at least, put your vacuum into the pool and let it vacuum. Because if you don't let it vacuum, it's not gonna get the sand, that is sitting at the bottom. When you brush it, the sand the way you brush it is you kind of push the sand towards the drains. But the thing is, there's only so much you can brush, and so much will go there, right? There is still a lot of sediment sitting at the bottom, and that will only get sucked in by using this guy right there. So I'm using a pool vacuum, and believe it or not, I have brushed a lot, and I have taken out a lot of sand in this month. But the amount of sand that I caught using this guy is, just mind-blowing. I wasn't thinking that it's going to be that much, so highly recommend. Again, make sure you use this, after a month, not right away, because these things can damage the surface, if it's not fully cured. But at this point, mine is fully cured, so that's the reason I'm using it. All right, he just wanted to be in the camera. Before tip number 7, right? So tip number 7. What tip?
The pool is green.
The pool is green? No, it's blue.
Oh, this is blue.
All right, tip number 7. Make sure your water level stays good. So depending on the weather that you're in, keep an eye on the water level, because you definitely don't want it to go below the surface, where you have the plaster. So because if it goes below the plaster, it can leave a mark and line, and that won't be good, and there's no way you can get rid of it. So make sure it always stays above the plaster line surface. So as you can see, and then guys, it's normal for the water level to go down, the evaporation and things like that. Hopefully you don't have a leak after the plaster is complete, but there are things that cause the water level to go down, so make sure, keep an eye on that. Tip number 8, make sure you test your pool water at different places. Don't just pick one place, because it happened to me that I was testing my water and something didn't feel right, because what I was testing using the test strip wasn't really matching what they were telling me, so I was very confused, and I ended up picking a different place. And guess what? My test results from the first place were not good. So make sure to go to 2 to 3 places. That's what I did. I ended up getting to 3 different places to get my water tested, and 2 of them kind of started to match. So I was like, okay, that gives me a better confidence level, along with my test results using my strip. Tip number 9, make sure you have some kind of a free chlorine or pool test strips, basically. And this is something that I use. I'm going to leave a link in the description below for a few that I use. This is one of them, and the reason I use this one is because it also gives me the stabilizer, which is the CYA reading, along with the pH, total alkalinity, and free chlorine. So make sure to keep this handy, because this is going to give you an indication whether your test results that you're getting from whatever pool store that you picked is right. All right, that brings us to our last tip number
10.
Tip number 10, that's correct. All right, so tip number 10 is, guys, when you're doing a startup, I highly recommend don't use the old filter, especially if your pool was in bad shape, especially if you had black algae and things like that, because all you're going to do is, by using the old filter, you're going to introduce particles of the old algae and things like that, which might not be dead live organism, into your new clean water, and you definitely don't want to do that. Go ahead and buy a new pool filter, and start new, fresh with everything. Even your pool vacuum, you want to make sure you wash it, everything. I even changed my hoses. I'm using the same filter, but I washed it and cleaned it before I put it into the water. So make sure you clean those things out, clean the pool equipment, from inside and things like that before turning the pump on, and so on and so forth, because you definitely don't want to introduce any old bad algae that might bloom into your new pool. So I got rid of my old filter, I put a brand new one, and just keep in mind, you may want to buy 2 filters, because after all this sand cleaning that is complete, after a month or 2 months time period, you may want to throw that filter away, and just put in a brand new filter, because that might restrict the flow of water, because there's just so many sand particles with the new finish that it might not even work. Or it may work. I'm not saying it's not going to work at all, but it all depends on how much sand you're, extracting from your pool. But in my case, I think I'm probably going to just put in a new filter when I'm done with this entire process. It's been a month. I'm probably going to wait a month more, so all my sand and everything is gone, and then I'm going to put a brand new filter again. This was also a brand new filter, but I'm going to put another brand new filter once I'm done with this process. So guys, these were some of the tips that I learned, when I did my startup, and I did this on my own. I did not want to hire the company to do this startup, because this is a very critical process. So if you are comfortable by doing it yourself, please do it yourself, because they're going to charge you a lot of money. And I've heard horror stories where people get brand new pools and their companies don't do a good job at the startup, and they end up getting stains and things like that. And I don't want to chance any of that, you know. So highly recommend, do it yourself. It's easy, very easy. You don't need to pay somebody $500 to do the startup process. Trust me, it's not worth it. And you know, with my contractor, I told him I'm going to do a startup myself. I'm not going to make him do this, because they're not going to do such a fine job that you will. Since you live there, you can brush every day, or if you want to, or every 2 weeks, you know, and keep the water chemistry perfect. You know, it's much easier. They only come once a week and take care of the stuff, you know, and they're not going to do the job that you want them to do. So again, the results is right here. You know, you can see the powdery stuff that you're probably wondering what is that. I just throw in some powdered chemical, the chlorine, the powder chlorine. That's the one I use, the trichloride. So that's what it is. So it's not the dirt, but again, guys, hopefully this video helps you guys. If you have any questions about the startup process, I'm going to leave a link in the description below with the detailed startup process that I did and what techniques I followed. So if you want to check out that video, please do check it out. I'm going to leave a link in the description below.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.